Before we begin, you should know something about the building this story takes place in. Long before it was called Alden Court, the lot on Grissom Street held a different structure, a residential care home that burned down in the winter of 1962. Records say 14 people died that night, though the official count was never confirmed because 3 bodies were never found. The land sat empty for almost 20 years before a construction company bought it cheap, poured a new foundation directly over the old one, and built the apartment complex that stands there today. Nobody who signs a lease is ever told this. Nobody who signs a lease ever thinks to ask why the rent is so low for a building 3 blocks from the university campus. Mason Cole didn't ask either. Mason was 20 years old, a sophomore paying his own way through college on a part-time job and a stack of loans he tried not to think about. When he found a 1-bedroom at Alden Court for almost half the going rate, he didn't see a red flag. He saw a miracle. He signed the lease. The same afternoon he toured the place, shook the landlord's hand, and moved his life into 2 duffel bags and a milk crate of textbooks by the end of the week. The building itself seemed almost aggressively normal. Beige carpet in the hallways, flickering light in the stairwell that the landlord promised to fix and never did. A laundry room that smelled like fabric softener and old pipes. Mason's unit was apartment 110 on the 1st floor, just 4 doors down from where the hallway numbers did something Mason didn't notice until his 2nd week living there. He was carrying groceries back from the corner store, counting doors out of habit the way you do in a new building, when he realized the numbers on the hallway plaques went 105, 106, 107, and then skipped straight to 109, with nothing but a blank stretch of wall in between. No gap in the doors themselves, no unused space, just a seamless run of beige wallpaper where a door should have been, like the wall itself had been built to erase whatever used to be there. He mentioned it to the front desk out of idle curiosity, expecting a shrug. Instead, the woman working the desk went very still, checked something on her computer, frowned, and told him the building directory did in fact list an apartment 108 on his floor. She just had no idea, she said, where it actually was. Maintenance requests for it went unanswered. Mail addressed to it piled up in a bin nobody claimed. As far as the paperwork was concerned, apartment 108 existed. As far as Mason's own eyes were concerned, it didn't. Not yet. Until the knocking started. Every night at exactly 1:08 a.m., 3 slow knocks echoed through his apartment. Not from his door. From somewhere inside the walls. Like they were coming from the empty space between his room and the next. The first night, Mason assumed it was pipes. The second night, he got up and pressed his ear to the wall and heard nothing at all, no plumbing, no vibration. Just silence. Right up until the moment the knocking started again, closer this time, like it had noticed him listening. He started sleeping with the lights on. A week in, he mentioned the missing door to Mrs. Alvarez, an older woman who lived down the hall, and watered a dead plant outside her door every morning out of what Mason could only assume was habit. He asked her, half joking, if she knew why the hallway skipped straight from 107 to 109 like apartment 108 had never been built. The color left her face so fast it startled him. "Don't talk about that," she said, already retreating toward her door. "Don't say the number out loud in this building. Just don't." She wouldn't say anything else. Neither would the maintenance man, who suddenly remembered an urgent job on the other end of the building the second Mason brought it up. Neither would the landlord, who laughed it off as a clerical error from the old management company, in a voice that didn't match the way his hands were shaking. Everyone in Alden Court knew something. Nobody would say it. 3 weeks after moving in, doing laundry in the basement, Mason found a cardboard box shoved behind the dryer, left by whoever had lived in his unit before him. Inside were a few unremarkable things: a broken phone charger, a paperback with the cover torn off, and one cassette tape, unlabeled except for 6 words written in shaky handwriting across a strip of masking tape. "Don't open the door, it remembers." He didn't own a cassette player. He bought one online that night out of a compulsion he couldn't fully explain to himself, and 3 days later, alone in his apartment with the lights on and the volume low, he pressed play. The voice on the tape was a man's, older, and it was shaking so badly that half his words dissolved into breath. He talked about the knocking. He talked about a hallway that wasn't always there. He said the building took people who went looking for 108, and that it didn't kill them. That would almost be kinder. He said it replaced them. He said the door only existed for an hour each night, opening the moment the knocking started and sealing itself shut again exactly 60 minutes later, and that he'd known someone, he wouldn't say who hadn't made it out before the wall closed and was never seen again in any shape Mason would have recognized as human. 108 to 208, the voice said. And Mason would only understand later how deliberately that detail had been chosen. A door numbered for the very hour it allowed itself to be found. That's all the time you get. After that, it doesn't matter how fast you run. And then, right before the tape cut to static, the man said one more thing, so quiet Mason had to rewind it twice to be sure he'd heard it correctly. "If you ever hear yourself talking back to you, don't answer." The tape ended. The apartment was silent. And then, from somewhere down the hall outside his door, at 1:08 in the dead of night, exactly on time, 3 knocks. Mason should have stayed in bed. He knew that, even as he was doing the opposite of it. But 3 weeks of unanswered questions had worn something down in him, and before he'd fully decided to move, he was already in the hallway, phone flashlight in hand, walking the 4 doors down to that blank stretch of wall between 107 and 109. Except now it wasn't blank. A narrow seam had opened in the wallpaper, right where a door should have been all along, like the building had simply stopped pretending. The air coming through it was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Set into the seam, close enough that Mason could have touched it from his own doorway, stood a door. It was white, freshly painted, almost too clean for a building this old. A small brass number was fixed at eye level. 108. Mason checked his phone out of some instinct he didn't examine too closely. 1:08 a.m. exactly. He thought about the tape. 1:08 to 2:08. That's all the time you get. He told himself he'd just knock. Just confirm it was real and then leave, well within the hour, and call someone, anyone, in the morning. He never got the chance to knock. The doorknob turned on its own, and the white door began to creak open from the inside.